Hello, you're on the Reddit Reveals channel. There was a child's shoe on our kitchen counter. That's how it started. Just one. Small, pink, glittery. Size maybe 6 or 7. Left beside the coffee maker, like it belonged there, like it lived there. I stared at it for a full minute before even asking the question. Whose is this? Mairead didn't turn around. She just kept pouring cereal into a bowl like we were in some wholesome breakfast commercial. Except her eyeliner was smeared and she smelled like smoke and vanilla vodka. Answer me. Still nothing. She added almond milk. Stirred. I walked up, snatched the shoe, and held it out between us like it was evidence in a courtroom. Mairead, why is this here? She finally met my eyes, but only for a second. You weren't supposed to see that. It's not what you think. Let me explain. You weren't supposed to see that. I didn't know what to say. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Did someone bring a kid to the cabin? Was there a family nearby? Or, what is this, Mairead? She didn't answer. She walked away. And just like that, it hit me. She hadn't kissed me when she came in this morning. She hadn't spoken a word until now. She hadn't even looked like she remembered me. It was 9:12 a.m. She had left for her bachelorette party at 5 p.m. the day before. And now there was a child's shoe on my counter. And my soon-to-be wife had brought back something worse than guilt. She had brought back a secret. And the shoe was just the beginning. I didn't follow her right away. Instead, I stood in the kitchen, holding that stupid glittery shoe like it was radioactive. Every instinct in me said to throw it away, to pretend I never saw it, to let Mairead brush it off with one of her half-smiles and move on with my nice, quiet life. But the smell was already creeping in from the hallway. A sour mix of car seat fabric, apple juice, and something else, like stale perfume mixed with something faintly sweet and rotten. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The kind of smell you remember if you've ever babysat a toddler for more than an hour. I walked toward the living room. Mairead was sitting on the couch, knees tucked up, staring at her phone but not scrolling. She didn't look up when I entered. So, is there a kid in our house? I asked carefully. I was trying not to sound hysterical. She shook her head. Just once. But then didn't say anything. Mairead, please. I'm serious. What happened last night? Another pause. Then she said, we didn't go to the cabin. My heart stuttered. What? We didn't go, she repeated. We got halfway then. Layla said there was a change of plans. We took the exit near Westmere and ended up at that lake house her cousin used to rent out. Why wouldn't you tell me that? She looked at me like I was missing the point. Because I didn't know she was bringing them. Them? I echoed. Who's them? Again, the silence. Then she finally looked me in the eyes. There were men there. My stomach dropped. Layla said it was just a few guys she knew. Chill people. They brought drinks, cards, music, and a child. I snapped, holding up the shoe. Mairead's face tightened like I'd hit her. No, the kid wasn't there at the party. So why is her shoe here? She looked down. Her voice went quiet. Because I drove them home. I blinked. Drove who? She stood up suddenly, grabbing the shoe from my hand. Ellery, you're spiraling. Don't do that, I said, louder than I meant to. Don't flip this. Just answer me. You left for a bachelorette party. You didn't go where you said you were going. You spent the night in a place full of strangers. You didn't call. You didn't text. And now there's a child's shoe in our kitchen. She said nothing. So I did what I always do when I don't believe her. I checked the car. I didn't even get all the way in before I smelled it. The back seat reeked. Crumbs everywhere. A tiny pink jacket balled up under the passenger seat. An empty sippy cup rolling loose near the floor mat. And on the window, tiny handprints. I froze. This wasn't just some girl she dropped off. This wasn't some innocent favor for a friend. A kid had been living in that car last night. And I didn't know why. Or whose. Or what Mairead had gotten herself involved in. When I came back inside, she was in the bathroom, door locked. The shower was running. But through the hum of the water, I heard something else. She was crying. Really crying. The kind of crying you can't fake. But I still didn't feel sorry for her. Because right now, she was hiding something. And I was just getting started. The shower ran for almost an hour. By the time Mairead came out, wrapped in a towel, eyes swollen and red, I had cleaned the car. Not because I was doing her a favor, but because I wanted to see everything. Every trace. Every clue. I found 3 Cheerios wedged into the back seat stitching. A crushed sticker sheet with cartoon ducks on it. A receipt from a gas station an hour north. timestamped 1:43 a.m. 4 Red Bulls, 2 bags of ice, and a box of adult diapers. That last part made no sense, until I saw the back of the receipt, where someone had scribbled a name in shaky handwriting. Ray. Ray. I sat in the living room with that receipt in my hands for a long time, just staring at the name, letting it echo in my brain like a riddle. I knew every cousin, niece, and co-worker Mairead had ever mentioned, and Ray wasn't on any list. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was when I opened her tablet, the one she always kept in her bag. The screen wasn't locked. She never bothered, said she had nothing to hide. I tapped it on and went straight to the Photos app. There were new pictures, 7 of them. The first 2 were what you'd expect, girls in matching outfits, posing with plastic champagne flutes in front of a bonfire, someone in the back flipping off the camera. But the other 5, they were different. One showed Mairead in the lake house kitchen, wearing one of my old hoodies, her hair up in a messy bun, holding a child, maybe 3 years old, on her hip. The kid was smiling, laughing even. Her little arms were around Mairead's neck like she knew her, trusted her. Another picture showed Mairead and Layla sitting on a couch, barefoot, exhausted. The same child asleep between them, resting her head in Mairead's lap. My heart was racing. The next photo nearly made me drop the tablet. It was a mirror selfie. Mairead in the lake house bathroom, hair wet, no makeup. The child stood beside her, wrapped in a towel, brushing her tiny teeth. And behind them, in the reflection, was a man. A tall man, shirtless, standing in the doorway like he belonged there. His expression wasn't threatening or intimate. It was ordinary. Like he'd just come in to say something. Like this was normal. I zoomed in on his face. I didn't recognize him. He wasn't tagged. No captions. No names. Just there. I didn't want to believe what I was thinking, but my stomach was already twisting itself into knots. Was this her friend's cousin? A random hookup? Some guy Mairead had known behind my back? Why was she in a bathroom with a half-naked man and a child who clearly wasn't family? And more than anything, why did she look so comfortable? I felt cold, angry, stupid. She was still upstairs, probably pretending to sleep off the hangover. I stood there gripping the tablet like it owed me an answer. My voice cracked when I called her name. Mairead, come down here. A pause. Then a weak, drawn-out, what? I didn't say anything else. Just held the tablet up where she could see it when she rounded the stairs. She froze. Her eyes locked on the screen. I watched her face shift, denial, panic, guilt, then something stranger, a flicker of resolve. She didn't ask how I got into her photos. She didn't ask what I was doing. She just said, I didn't think they'd upload automatically. Like that was the problem. Like that was the betrayal. My throat tightened. Who is he? She sat down on the bottom step and looked at the floor. Ellery, I can't tell you everything. Not yet. It's not just my story. That phrase. That absolutely infuriating, evasive phrase. It's not just my story. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her. I wanted to demand every name, every detail, every second of that night. But I didn't. Because somewhere deep down, I had the awful feeling that I already knew where this was heading. And I wasn't ready to hear it out loud. She didn't speak for the rest of the day. Not to me. Not on the phone. Not even to the delivery guy who brought the pad thai she ordered for dinner and didn't eat. I watched her from across the room as she sat at the kitchen table, absently poking at the rice, her eyes heavy and far away, like she was mourning something I hadn't been invited to understand. The silence wasn't new, but this version of it felt surgical. She wasn't avoiding me out of guilt. She was avoiding me because she knew I wouldn't stop asking. So I did what I shouldn't have done, what I always swore I'd never be the kind of guy to do. I stole her phone while she was asleep. It was under her pillow, warm from her skin. I held it in my hands like it was evidence pulled from a crime scene, half expecting it to burn me. The screen lit up. No password. Same as always. I didn't go to her messages first. I went to her maps history. That's what got me. She had turned off location tracking. I saw that right away, but she hadn't deleted the cache directions. The last searched route was from our house to a place called Fallow Pines Trailhead. I looked it up. Not the lake house. Not a cabin. A hiking trail in the middle of nowhere, known mostly for campers and off-griders who liked their weekends quiet. Why would she go there? At 12:12 a.m.? With a child? The next morning, I called in sick and drove out there. I didn't tell her. She barely noticed I left. I half expected her to be gone when I came back. Maybe I even wanted her to be. That would have made everything cleaner, in a sick sort of way. The drive was slow. Fog hugged the asphalt like wet cotton. My tires kicked gravel as I pulled up to the dirt lot where the pin had dropped. Empty. Quiet. Only the sound of wind through pines and the occasional caw of some miserable bird. I parked and started walking. There was a path. Narrow, winding, barely visible in places. The trees here were older, twisted, almost claustrophobic. About 10 minutes in, I found something strange, a faded plastic sign nailed to a tree. It read, "Caution, unstable structure ahead." Structure? I followed the trail another few minutes until I saw it. A tiny building, half hidden in the undergrowth. Not a cabin, not even a shack. It looked like an old storm cellar dug into the side of a hill, with a rusted metal door and a cracked concrete frame. The door was slightly open, not enough to see inside, just ajar. My breath caught. Everything in me said to turn around, but I stepped closer anyway. The moment I touched the handle, something inside shifted. A small sound, like fabric brushing against cement, like movement. I froze. I waited. Nothing. I should have walked away. I did walk away, for maybe 20 feet. But I came back. I opened the door just wide enough to peek in. It was dark. Empty. Or so I thought. I took one step inside, and something on the wall caught the light. The dull shine of a silver bracelet, hanging from a nail. A child's bracelet. Tiny. With rainbow beads and the word "RA" spelled out in plastic letters. My blood turned to ice. This was her. The girl in the photo. The girl in my wife's arms. The girl with the shoe. She had been here. And Mairead had brought her. But why? Why would my wife, a woman who couldn't even commit to owning a plant, sneak off to a crumbling cellar in the woods with a child she wouldn't explain? I left fast, almost slipping in the pine needles. When I got back to the car, I checked my phone. One missed call. From a number I didn't recognize. Voicemail. I played it. There was only one word, whispered low and fast, like it had been said in fear. Help. Then static. Then silence. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even pretend to. I sat in the hallway outside our bedroom like a guard dog that no longer trusted the person sleeping inside. The voicemail played in my head on a loop. That one word, help, warped and twisted into a dozen different meanings the longer I thought about it. Was it a prank? A mistake? A warning? Or had someone used Mairead's phone? Because here's the thing I didn't mention. That voicemail. It came from her number. Yeah, hers. Same digits. Same contact photo. Same everything. But when I called it back, it didn't ring. It just clicked, then dropped. Like it wasn't meant to be called. By the time the sun rose, I was unraveling. I was searching forums, digging into burner number lookup tools, even checking the IMEI on her phone in case it had been cloned. Nothing made sense. So I did something I never, ever thought I'd do. I went to her old laptop. She hadn't used it in months, maybe longer, but I'd seen it sitting in the guest room closet under a pile of old scarves. It still worked. Booted up slow, like it resented me for waking it. No password. Just her desktop wallpaper. A photo of us in New Hampshire, 2 winters ago, cheeks red from the wind, both laughing. I didn't recognize myself. That guy looked safe. Comfortable. I started digging. Emails. Photos. Notes. At first, it was all boring stuff. Makeup receipts. Pinterest links. Messages from her sister about catering for the wedding. But then I found a folder, deep in her documents, labeled with nothing but the letter R. Inside were dozens of images. Some I'd seen before, from old trips, bridal showers, birthdays. But most of them were of her. Alone. Taken in strange places I didn't recognize. A white kitchen with silver tile walls. A backyard with a chain-link fence and rusted patio furniture. A bedroom with floral wallpaper that didn't belong to anyone we knew. In every photo, she looked slightly different. Hairstyled differently. Makeup she never wore around me. Clothes I'd never seen. And then I found it. A scan of an old ID. Not a fake one. Not photoshopped. A real government-issued ID. Same face. Different name. It read, Rachel May Dunn. I just stared at it. For minutes. My brain refused to process what I was seeing. Mairead's name was nowhere on it. No mention of marriage. No familiar address. Just a woman who looked exactly like my wife, with a completely different life. A new theory formed in my mind. Awful. Impossible. But suddenly undeniable. Had Mairead been living 2 lives? Had she been someone else this entire time? I closed the laptop slowly and walked to the bedroom. She was awake now, sitting up against the headboard, staring at the wall like she'd been waiting for a verdict. "You weren't supposed to find that," she whispered. I didn't yell. I didn't ask her what it meant. I just said one word, my throat dry and cracking. "Who are you?" She didn't answer at first. Instead, she stood and walked toward me, barefoot, calm, like we were about to have a normal, adult conversation over coffee. Then she said something I will never forget. "You'll hate me if I tell you, but you'll fear me if I don't." Then she brushed past me and walked downstairs. And just like that, the floor dropped out of my world. She didn't make coffee that morning. That may sound like nothing, but Mairead made coffee every morning, even when she was sick, even when she was running late, even when we fought. It was ritual. It was her reset button. But that day, she didn't touch the French press. She didn't look at me. She sat on the floor of the sunroom wrapped in a blanket, legs folded under her like a child in timeout. And I just stood there, leaning against the doorframe, trying to figure out how the hell I ended up married to a woman with a second name, a second life, and God knows what else. I wanted to yell. I wanted to demand answers. But I felt outmatched, like I was walking into a story that had started long before I ever showed up. I went back upstairs, not because I was giving her space, but because I needed one more look, one more dive into that laptop. Because something wasn't sitting right. The ID, the hidden folder, the kid. It all felt like a puzzle missing a central piece. That's when I noticed the shortcut in the taskbar I hadn't seen earlier. It was titled Journal. I clicked it open. A single document. Password protected. I stared at the screen, wondering what kind of person she thought would never try to open it. Then, on a hunch, or maybe just desperation, I typed in Ray. It worked. The file opened. And what I found inside wasn't what I expected. It wasn't a diary, not in the traditional sense. No dates. No Dear Diary entries. Just fragments. Paragraphs. Stream of consciousness confessions. It was as if she had spilled her thoughts in bursts and then left them to rot on the page. She doesn't remember the fire. I made sure of that. But sometimes she flinches when she hears sirens. Sometimes she mumbles his name in her sleep. I thought I could bury the past. But Ray's face is starting to change, and she looks more like me every day. I don't know how long I can keep pretending she's not mine. Ellery's kind. Safe. He'll never understand the things I've done to survive. But maybe he doesn't need to. Maybe pretending is enough. If he ever finds the cellar, everything ends. I couldn't breathe. I read those words over and over, each one sinking deeper like teeth in my skin. Ray was her child. She'd hidden it. Lied about it. Lied to me. Lied to herself. But who was the he she was so terrified of? And what fire? What past? I kept reading. Near the bottom of the page, in bold, underlined text, was a short list, like a checklist or reminders to herself. I copied it word for word into my phone. Find new meds before Friday. Bury the box. Avoid Lake Hill Pharmacy. Change license back before March. Never tell Ellery about Marcus. Ever. Marcus. There it was again, another name. Another shadow behind the curtain. I didn't recognize it, but it chilled me. I had a sinking, awful feeling that Marcus wasn't just a person. He was a chapter. A chapter she had closed violently and hoped I'd never open. The moment I backed out of the file, I heard footsteps behind me. She was standing in the doorway, her eyes glassy but hollow, as if she'd run out of tears. "You read it," she said. I didn't answer. She nodded to herself like she already knew. Then she walked over slowly, sat down beside me on the floor, and spoke, her voice low, almost detached. "I was 19 when I left Ray's father. He wasn't just abusive. He was dangerous, obsessive. He burned down my sister's house just because I hid there for a night. He's the reason I changed my name. The reason I vanished." My heart was pounding. And Ray, she was with me. Until I had to run. I left her with a woman I trusted. I thought I was protecting her. I thought I'd come back. But by the time it was safe, Ray didn't remember me. I felt the room spin. "So what now?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "You just bring her back into your life like nothing happened? What were you doing at that cellar?" She looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "Because he's back, Ellery. Marcus. I saw him 2 nights ago. He was watching us. Ray isn't safe anymore. And neither are we." I didn't believe her. Not completely. Not yet. But by the end of that week, I would. Because Marcus wasn't just watching us. He was already inside the house. It started with the toothbrush. Not something big. Not blood on the walls. Not broken windows or threats scribbled in red ink. Just a blue toothbrush in the upstairs bathroom that didn't belong to either of us. It was wedged between ours like it had always been there. Familiar, harmless. The kind of thing you could ignore if you weren't looking for it. But I was. I stared at it for a long time. Cheap plastic. Frayed bristles. A faint pink smear of toothpaste still clinging to the handle. I went downstairs and asked Mairead, casually, like I was testing her. Did you buy a new toothbrush? She didn't even look up from her book. Nope. I waited. Nothing else. No questions. No curiosity. Just a flip of the page like I'd asked her if we were out of milk. My blood ran cold. I walked back up, picked up the toothbrush with the edge of a tissue, and threw it in a Ziploc bag. I didn't tell her. I didn't tell anyone. I just kept it in the glove box of my car, like proof I wasn't losing my mind. That was Monday. On Wednesday, I came home from the grocery store to find Mairead gone. No note. No calls. Her car was still in the driveway, but her phone was missing and the front door was locked from the inside. I called her 5 times. No answer. I started searching the house like a man possessed. Closet, attic, backyard, nothing. Until I checked the basement. We almost never used the basement. It was cold and unfinished, with a busted light and a damp patch in the corner that smelled like rust. But when I yanked open the door, the first thing I saw was a pair of muddy footprints on the concrete stairs. Fresh. I hesitated, then went down, one slow step at a time, heart hammering. She wasn't there, but something else was. A bag, stuffed under an old sheet behind the water heater. Black duffel zipped tight. I pulled it out, placed it on the workbench, and opened it. Inside, a stack of burner phones. 3 passports. A wad of cash, maybe 5,000 in 20s. And a small camera, the kind you mount in corners or stick in a stuffed animal's eye socket. I sat down hard. This wasn't Mairead's emergency bag. This wasn't for her. This was someone else's. Someone who had been staying here. Someone who planned to run. Or watch. I opened the camera. Memory card inside. I plugged it into the laptop upstairs and clicked through the files, hard in my throat. There were videos. Dozens. Each one under a minute. Each one from the same angle, looking into our bedroom. From the closet. I hadn't even realized the tiny slit in the door had been open all week. The first few clips showed Mairead folding laundry, reading, sleeping. Then, on the 6th video, it was me. Alone. Changing. Getting into bed. Sleeping. Another angle. Another time. Me, at my desk, writing emails. Me, brushing my teeth. Me, sitting in the sunroom, flipping through the newspaper with a cup of coffee, just like always. I had been watched. For weeks. Maybe longer. And Mairead knew. She had to. That night, I confronted her. She came home just after midnight, soaking wet, barefoot, hair matted to her face. She looked like she'd walked through a storm. When I asked her where she'd been, she didn't answer. I showed her the camera. Her face didn't change. She just said, "He's already in." In where? In everything, she whispered. "He's not coming after me anymore. He's coming after you." I laughed. I don't know why. Some broken, hysterical noise came out of me that barely sounded human. "You think this is a game?" I shouted. "You think I'm going to play along with this madness? Cameras in our house. Passports in the basement. What are you even saying, Mairead?" She looked at me then, really looked, the way you do when you're about to say goodbye to someone you love but can't save. "I try to keep you out of this," she said softly. I really did. Then she turned around and walked upstairs, and left me standing there, surrounded by proof of a life I never agreed to live. The night after I found the cameras, I slept in the car. Not out of anger, not out of fear, but because I needed a wall between me and that house, between me and the version of reality that was folding in on itself like some collapsing star. I stared up through the windshield until my eyelids gave out, my thoughts racing in every direction. I kept thinking about that little pink shoe, that child in the photo, the bracelet in the cellar, the name Marcus. Everything pointed to something horrifying, but I couldn't shake the look in Mairead's eyes. She wasn't scared of him. She was scared for me. By morning, I decided I was done reacting. I was going to confront this, whatever this really was. I went back inside, ready to tell her I was leaving. Not because I stopped loving her, but because I couldn't live in a world where every corner might hide another truth she didn't trust me with. But she was already in the kitchen, sitting at the table, her fingers curled around a steaming mug of coffee. "I turned it all in," she said. I blinked. "What?" "The camera, the bag, the files, the phones. I dropped it all at the sheriff's office around 4 this morning. I used my real name. Both of them." I didn't understand. She pushed a folder across the table. Inside were official papers, statements, a copy of her original restraining order from years ago, police reports, even a sealed letter from a social worker confirming her change of identity for witness protection, a detail she was legally bound to hide from even her spouse until the danger had passed. "You weren't crazy," she said softly. "You were right. You saw what I didn't want to see. I just couldn't let him ruin what I had with you. I thought if I hid enough of it, it would stop being true." She told me everything. Marcus had been arrested once before, assault, arson, stalking, but released on a technicality. Years went by. She built a new life, got therapy, took a job under a different name, changed her style, hid from social media. But when Ray's foster family was relocated and the girl ended up in the same town as Mairead again by coincidence, it was like life folded in on itself. Ray didn't remember her, but Mairead remembered everything, and she wanted to fix it, not as a mother reclaiming a child, but as a woman trying to right what she once broke. And Marcus? He had been tracking Ray. Not Mairead. Not me. Ray. He wanted her back. To use her. To manipulate Mairead through her. That's why Mairead had visited the cellar. It was where Ray used to hide. The only place Mairead could convince her to run to in case something went wrong. And when she suspected Marcus had found them, she planted the camera in our house, not to spy on me, but to catch him. And it worked. The sheriff's department reviewed the footage. Facial recognition flagged Marcus within 24 hours. He had violated multiple restraining orders and crossed state lines under a fake name. They arrested him that same week, outside a middle school parking lot, where he'd been sitting alone in his car for over an hour, engine running. He had duct tape, candy, and a fake police badge in his glove box. I vomited when I heard that part. But Ray was safe. She was placed in emergency foster care, this time with full protection. Mairead was allowed supervised visits. And for the first time since I met her, she didn't look like someone waiting to run. She looked like someone building roots. It took time, months, but eventually, Ray started to recognize her. Not as mom, not right away, but as someone who made her feel safe. Someone who remembered her favorite lullaby. Someone who never forgot her. And me? I stayed. Not because I forgave everything overnight, but because Mairead finally let me in. She showed me all the broken pieces, not to be fixed, but to be known. We moved the following year. Just one town over. Bigger windows. Fewer shadows. Ray visits on weekends now. We planted a tree together in the backyard last spring. She named it Toothbrush, for reasons we still don't quite understand, but it makes her laugh every time we ask. And sometimes, when I pass by the sunroom, I see Mairead sitting cross-legged on the rug with Ray in her lap, brushing a doll's hair or reading a story, her eyes soft and calm. And I realize, I didn't marry a liar. I married a survivor. And somehow, she chose to stay.